Good morning! One man and his hobby, and it is finished, shall we say. It's not really finished because, you know, I might put in some more lights down that end. There's a little bit of greenery left to put on. I may do a little bit more trimming of the trees. I'd like more clutter down here and in the goods yard down there, just to make it look a bit untidy. But it is finished, really. There's no more big videos from here about what I'm doing or why. I suppose one question is would I do anything different? Yes, I would. I would have moved house to a 1960s large 3-bed semi with a big open attic, none of these things in it, put in a massive dormer window and a huge Velux, and built a freestanding table where heights weren't an issue. I mean, what I really wanted up here was a dual track, and then perhaps even another dual track on a higher level where they're crossing over and there's skew bridges, and that kind of didn't go very well because of the loft ladder. Now, someone suggested, why didn't you change the loft ladder? Well, that was rather an expensive and very robust loft ladder, and I didn't want to change it for one of those that folds up into about 3 pieces that takes half the weight. Good job, really, because the guy who put this window in looked like the gentleman who plays Jack Reacher. I don't know if you've seen him, but he's about 6'2", and he's got shoulders like this, and that was the size of the gentleman who came and put this window in. Certainly in excess of 220 pounds of pure muscle. Yeah, he wouldn't have got up a cheap and flimsy loft ladder. So yeah, there's 1,000 things that I could have done different. But I'm happy with what I've got. Now, if I was to describe this layout, the way I would describe it is very naive and very childlike. I've had a lot of suggestions in comments about what I could do. I don't have the skill level. I really don't. You know, you look on other people's layouts on YouTube, you know, things like Renton or Mouldy Raspberry, and if you haven't seen those 2 channels, go and see them. Renton with a W, R-E-N-T-O-N, and Mouldy Raspberry, he deals in OO, so things might be slightly different, but it's well worth you looking at his layout if you haven't. Renton is beautifully made, it is scratch built, it is weathered. The village scene actually looks like a village, whereas mine looked nothing like a village at all. All of this is, alright, it's come out of my imagination, and I've seen a few bits and pieces on other YouTube videos, but it's not really a railway scene. None of this looks like a railway scene. You know, I didn't go and visit stations. I didn't go and visit goods yards. I didn't photograph anything. None of this is weathered. I don't have that skill. The track isn't weathered. A lot of people paint their track to make it look rusty brown, and then they rub off the top surface of the rail for electricity, but I haven't done any of that. As I say, it's very naive, very childlike. I'm very unrealistic. It doesn't look like 1950s, 1960s in here. But I like it, and that's all that matters. I know that the signals are incorrect, and I don't particularly care. Some of the things are a bit drunk, where I've glued something and left it and come back the following day and it's all leaning over. Such is life. I think if I did do, if there was one thing I would do again differently. Downstairs I used 4mm static grass, and I thought, oh, that's a bit on the long side. So up here I've used 2mm, and 2mm is just too neat and tidy. I should have used 4 again. But you live and learn. Not as if I'm going to start again, but you know, if I was to recommend anything to you, it's keep the 2mm for the lawns around houses and use 4mm everywhere else. If you're in OO gauge, you're going to want to use longer than that, aren't you? But yeah, it's done. Now I've done it very quickly. I'm fortunate that I've been able to, if I've needed to throw in 10 hours on a Saturday and 10 hours on the Sunday, I've been able to do that. And part of the reason for me, I suppose, rushing was I'm retiring at the end of March. So this year I've got a surplus of money. Next year I will not have a surplus. So if I stretch this out, this build out over a 3 or 4 or 5 year period, well, it might not have got finished, because I don't know. You know, on paper my pension is enough, but until you actually live it, you don't know if it's enough. I've got another job to do. The fiddle yard behind me, I'm going to put in 2 extra sidings there to accommodate anything that I may get for Christmas in future. But that's it really. I don't see that there's going to be any more construction videos, because why am I going to show you a video about me deciding to put 2 extra bushes there, or even a couple of lights down there? You know, there isn't a video in that. I have got a couple more jobs to do. I repainted all of this stuff at the beginning, and the board fascias here, and I'm just going to go over with one last coat. And this time, now that I've cleared most of the rubbish out from underneath, because it's now on the boards, I'll actually go down to ground level, if you like. But I'm not going to make a video about that, am I? Insulation, well, I have mentioned insulation on a couple of occasions. It doesn't keep the heat out, but it does keep the warmth in. I think if I could have afforded a second window, say down there, I would have had a second window, but I couldn't afford that. I couldn't afford another grand on that. But it certainly needs it in the summer. That's it really. I don't know what sort of videos I'll make from now on. It's very difficult to do a proper running video. I just set off 3 locomotives running round in a loop, and I follow with the phone. I suppose in the future what I'll actually have to do is to set up this proper camera on the tripod and just have it pointing at certain sections, and then I can control the trains properly. I did get asked about controllers. You've probably picked them up. These 2 are very old Graham Farish in black. Ancient, but they do the job. This one's a little bit newer, but still relatively ancient, but it does the job. I've got no need to spend hundreds of pounds on controllers. Now, one comment I got was about running correct locomotive length trains. I have a maximum of 5. I've got inclines, and even though they are proper percentage inclines, and most of my locomotives have traction tyres, some of them simply cannot get up these inclines. So to run it with 10 carriages, or 12, Just not going to happen. The wheels just spin up and they won't climb. The other thing about running a full length train is this main station is what it's about 3 feet long, and that 3 feet will accommodate a locomotive and 5 carriages. There's one just there. In fact, I've just stopped it. This one's only got 3 carriages and a luggage van. But if you're going to run a full size train with 10 or even 12 carriages, then your main station isn't 3 feet long, is it? You're looking at 6 or 7 feet, which puts it from here to 4, 6, puts it good 18 inches behind the camera. So if you're going to run full length, you've got to dedicate an awful lot of your board to it. So that was another reason for not running full length, besides the cost of all those extra coaches. I think the fiddle yard is probably the best thing. When I was down there in the little bedroom, if I wanted to change what I was running, then it was a question of getting everything off the track manually, get them back into the boxes, into the cupboard, get something else out of the boxes, put it on the track. And then I started getting lazy, where I was running the same coaches but with different locomotives, and it was a thorough pain in the backside. So I'm very happy for me to dedicate one end of this layout to just sidings, and then I can chop and change very easily. You see, when everything's in boxes, you don't want to chop and change. You're too lazy. You've got an hour of free time. Why would you spend that hour, part of that hour, putting things away and getting things out? So by having them all out, I can chop and change every 10 minutes. In an hour I can run 6 locomotives on each track. So I could run 18 different things. Couldn't do that downstairs. And I'm glad that the end-to-end has morphed into a full loop as well, because I had an end-to-end down there, didn't I? And from a filming point of view, you were always stood too far away from the controller to stop it hitting the buffers at the end of the end-to-end. So you were out of control. So the choice was either run the end-to-end and forget about the camera, or not run the end-to-end. Anyhow, I've chatted enough. So let's get something running, and I'll show you around the layout as if you haven't seen it already, but I might show it you from a slightly different perspective, in that we'll look at what I've done rather than what's going round and round. Well, let's start with the fiddle yard. Of course, having 2 levels on the layout meant that I could use the space twice, on top and underneath. I've got a spare one up here, which is just full of trucks waiting something to pull them. And down below I've got 5 underneath, and I've got 5 at the front. But the space at the front for some more. So some more points have been bought. And in this area I can add a couple of sidings. Now they're not going to be long sidings, because not every locomotive is going to be pulling 5 coaches. It gets a bit expensive. But there's definitely space to expand this, even if I've got to extend the fiddle yard with a slat of timber. So we come out and we're straight into the horses in the field. I'm glad this time I've got more detail in with the telegraph poles and signals, and the top station, and I'm still not too sure about those pine trees. And the class 122 hides in the passing loop. It's funny, I've got more sidings for the single track than I have for the dual track. And we put a little bit of extra effort for the signal box and station staff, and I don't think I've overcrowded it too much. I did get an awful lot of people in job lots, so I did use them. And the first house with the washing line. I did enjoy doing this, but I think every time I drop into the model shop from now on, I'll buy one of those little boxes of ready-made flowers and stuff and just add in every now and then. And as you can see, that 2mm grass is just too neat and tidy. Now this was a foam sheet that goes at the back of a, I'll say fish tank, so you know what I'm talking about, but basically it's for a terrapin tank or insect tank or reptile tank, and once cut and glued into place, it does the job. See, nothing here is homemade, scratch built, it's all come out of a packet. And we move on and we've got the caravan. I can't remember who bought me the caravan one year, but I had to make space for it. And the first field with hay bales, and then the pigs, and Ron's visiting the pigs for some reason. Perhaps he likes a bit of bacon. I know I do. And the first Metcalfe viaduct and bridge with a Stug 3, and the next lot of bridges and the tunnel entrances to go under the hill above the loft ladder. Tornado having an outing. As you can see, only 3 coaches because it doesn't pull very well. And I got this in the job lot. A couple kissing in the back of an American car. And we're onto the hill. And the farm. I did enjoy doing the farm. I do like doing these bits as much as I enjoy the railway bits. And I got so many tractors in job lots. If you want a couple of tractors, drop me a line and I'll post them to you. Nice little Land Rover. And of course, up on top of the hill we've got the sheep. And then we're into the first corner. Never set of Metcalfe bridges, and the road tunnel which comes out the other side of the hill. I don't know if the signals are in the right place or not. Not bothered. And of course, because of the curvature of the rises from Woodland Scenics, the main line had to be split because one was going lower than the other. It's a shame they don't do these rises in N gauge. Then that wouldn't have happened. And now the church. I quite like the church. I'm so glad I did this. And of course, none of this is scratch built. It's all readily available on eBay. Just search for N gauge headstones and gravestones, you'll find them. And of course the big imposing tree in the back corner, probably the best seafoam tree I've ever had. And yet another house. Wouldn't mind a house in the country. Motorbike and sidecar, one in the road as well, and another phone box and post box. The hill now devoid of trees, as you've already seen, and the cows at the front of the board. I might do something different with that hill. there's a faint possibility that I could turn it into a field of something. And now we're on to the other corner with the goods yard, or my idea of a goods yard, which was just using this building with a bit of platform that somebody had made and then sold to me on eBay, and then just scattering around clutter, really. Again, came in many job lots from eBay. And we got the cattle dock, a little ground frame. It wasn't complete, but I got that off eBay as well. I got a bit of track here that probably wants cleaning because that locomotive stops on it when it's going slowly. A 3MT hides in there. I did consider using the 3MT as the king of the yard instead of buying another 64XX, but I got a soft spot for GWR tanks. The last house, and then the divider. I felt I needed this. I felt I needed this divider across the board. So this is 2 bridge kits and a wall kit and a ramp kit from Metcalfe, all cobbled together. It does a job. And now the viaduct, which is 3 viaduct kits cobbled together. Not very well, but it gets me across there. And the Fowler kit at the back, plastic kit this is. I really wanted to find a Fowler kit that would have done the job of this long viaduct. The lockkeeper's cottage, although I don't have a lock on it this time. And these 2 little canoes, despite weighing absolutely nothing, are starting to sink into the water. So although I've used this water twice now, it probably isn't good. And the flowers and the bulrushes that I put up against the canal bank haven't really worked out as well as I'd like. Perhaps it could have used some more lily pads. And of course you have to remember that the canal goes nowhere. Disappears underneath this bit of leftover back scene from the fish tank. There's another piece there. But it does a job and it looks decent. It's certainly a job I couldn't do from scratch. Yeah, that scenic break, I think it does the job of separating the layout up into separate rooms. And of course here we have the last 8 feet, which you've only just seen, so I'm not too sure why I'm repeating this. Again, a bit sparse. So these gardens will get extra flowers in the future next time I go to the model shop. And I will be going because there's about 3 locomotives I want. Especially now that the Dapple Britannia has died on me. Although I'm going to have a go at fixing that at the weekend. Lucky me. But I have a funny feeling it's going to become a static model. I'm certainly not going to throw any money at it. I'm not going to send it off to be repaired. I'm not going to buy a new chassis. And here we get to the end of the board. The final bit into the tunnels, and we're back into the fiddle yard. well, that's it. The fun's over for another day. I've got that Britannia to try and fix. Lucky me. Ta-ra.